Essential Instructional Practice 8. It's abundant reading material and reading opportunities in the classroom. How do you provide that rich selection of text? Do you ensure that you've got information books, poetry, storybooks, and a range of other texts that students are interested in available to them? Right now, this is just as important, even though students will not be attending face-to-face, is how are you going to give access to children to a variety of books and encourage them to keep reading? How will you interact with them face-to-face online to talk about their reading? An important part of providing an abundant supply of reading material is thinking about how you'll collect books that finding out really what students are interested in, and how do you provide books that reflect their backgrounds and their cultural experiences. Do you know their backgrounds, their cultural experiences, and talk to others about wonderful texts that you can provide where they may be able to see themselves? But importantly, you need to include class and child-made books, especially in the early years. Now, these class and child-made books are not just where everyone does a particular page that's exactly the same and we staple it together, but where we innovate on texts, create our own stories, our own information books, and put them together for others to read, whether we do this collaboratively or independently. These images show preschool children reading books, the class-made books where there's been an innovation on Where's the Green Sheep in the left-hand side photo, and an innovation on Boo to a Goose in the right-hand side photo, all been made together collaboratively as a class. In the middle, there's books where children have written their own responses to about their mum, and you can see that they've created a book that has been published for others to enjoy. This is very much connected to a reading-writing connection, because remember, everything that we read an author has written and what we write for a reader. So making class and child-made books is really a reading-writing connection task. Here's another example of an innovation on a text of brown bear, what do you see? And then making it culturally relevant to the children. They become class favourites and great early readers. The essential practices remind us that we need to think carefully about children's backgrounds and cultural experiences. Have you got a wide range of cultures represented? Think about what Aboriginal texts that you can locate, and who you will contact and talk to, maybe your school librarian, looking online at the Children's Book Council. If you have never gone to the Children's Book Council website, you will find all of the honour books and strongly recommended literature with reviews on the Australian Children's Book Council website. You can see an image here of a classroom where the books have been organised according to children's interests. Those green labels have actually been determined by the children when they've been to the library and come back and labelled the boxes of books that they can choose from in their own classroom. The practices remind us that we need to have books that children can borrow to bring home or access digitally. Never has there been a more important time than right now to consider that. You can see Kate here on the left-hand side, where she, as the principal of a school, has spent some time reading texts and then saving her audio onto a QR code and popping them on the front of books so they can be just scanned by a QR reader, and children can have the text and listen to her read that text. This might be something that would be possible for you to do now, as to access, so to provide more children with access, or purely just reading online in your Google Classroom so that you can actually share those books together. Remembering to record your reading so students can revisit that and hear the book many times. Here's an expert on distance learning I thought I'd introduce you to, Kristen Zemick. Now, Kristen has written a few books on digital learning. One of her recent books is called Amplify. But online, she has a great presence, and she has many, many tips for you as you begin to think about moving online, and in particular, thinking about reading comprehension and engaging with conversations around the text that students read. So I encourage you to go to her website, listen to her conversation with Jennifer Ceravello and her co-author, Katie. It's very a worthwhile visit and constantly being added to. A couple of online resources you probably know about, but to remind you about Newslear and Wonderopolis, that are once again places that you can go and access text that could be discussed and shared online. Remember that reading every day is important. We need to provide opportunities for our children to read during the day, which is why we might have that workshop model we mentioned before as a reader's workshop, where children spend their most of their time actually reading or writing and engaged or working towards that process. This chart reminds us that the more time children can spend reading out of school, the better as well. And right now, children may not be actually physically in school, so it's important that we work with parents and you work with your class schedules to encourage regular reading. Look at this graph here, that a student who reads 20 minutes each day, look how many more words they will read by the end of 6th grade than a student who only reads for 1 minute a day. And we know that the more we read, the better we get at reading, the wider our vocabulary, and the more success we probably have in literacy or leading a literate life. So please keep focused on engagement, motivation, sharing, the excitement and passion of reading as we move into more of a digital space. Instruction and coaching in how to select texts and employ productive strategies during reading, feedback on children's reading and post-reading response activities are all really important. It's a great idea to ask children to read something and then maybe just get them to record what they think, what they wonder after reading a book. Looking at an image, reading an image and recording what they see, what they think, what they wonder, and then having a conversation about it, which is something they could do online, is to leave their thinking as an audio message for you. When you're reading with reading for a purpose, then you might be asking students to think about what questions you have before you read, what questions do you have now you've finished reading, what connections did you make to another text, to your life. What about clues for inferences? Did anyone make an inference today? What would be the clues, so that you don't have to be reading the same book, but you can ask these generic questions? They might be able to retell what they read. Just read a paragraph. Stop, think, talk about what you've read, talk to your parents about what you've read, and then keep reading. Or this book reminds me of, as a response after reading. The text there, Reading with Meaning, is a wonderful text to give you lots of ideas as well. Have you talked to your children at all about what a good fit book is? Do they have the strategies when they go to the library, or trying to make a selection to know what it is that they're looking for? Who are the great authors that might really hook them into reading? We need opportunities for children to engage in independent reading of materials of their choice every day as well. These images are of wonderful classroom centres that have been set up so that texts are not just in the library corner, but they're placed around the classroom in interesting ways to invite children into reading in a variety of learning areas and a lot of informative text. How will we move this into a digital mode of being able to perhaps have a photo and inspire children to be doing some research around a particular area of interest and setting up some perhaps websites or digital books for them to go to and do that reading. Now, the practices remind us we need a comfortable place to read. Do we need to set up inviting environments in our classroom around reading? Now, you can see some lovely, well-organised environments here. Perhaps you could encourage parents or children to set up a small place in their home environment now that is a cosy place for them to snuggle in and enjoy a book or read something on an iPad or engage in a conversation with someone about something that they have just read. As we come to the end of Essential Practice 8, once again, it's really a key practice to setting up at the beginning of the year and encouraging that reading culture right throughout the year. And we can do that by the way we present the books in our classroom, by the way we talk about the books and hook children into wanting to read more. I'd like you to take a moment to have a look at your audit tool for Essential Practice 8 and see how you're going in your classroom around providing an abundant supply of books and reading materials. And now thinking about what might be some of the challenges and what support might you need to be able to transfer this rich reading culture into the online learning space.